Premier Keneally, welcome to Northern New South Wales. There's just 19 days until the state election. The polls aren't looking so good for Labor at the moment, with I think a projected primary of 23%. You had your bus breakdown yesterday, a fire alarm at a law court this morning. How do you find the motivation to keep fighting?
Well, it's easy to fight for things you believe in when times are good. The more important thing is to fight for those things even when times are tough, and that's what I'm out there doing, fighting for a fair deal for families with our Fairness for Families Act, $250 rebate off the electricity bill, capping public transport, keeping Hunter Water in public ownership. Those are the things I'm out there fighting for. You know, the bus breaking down. Well, let me just say this. I just said, get me a new bus, and off we went. And it doesn't really matter what it says on the side of the bus. What matters is the message, and that's what I'm out there every day doing.
How important is regional New South Wales to your re-election campaign?
Well, certainly New South Wales is a very varied state with obviously major metropolitan centres in Newcastle and in Sydney and in the Illawarra, and then of course different challenges in the regions. One of the things that I would point to is the recent success we had at COAG Health Reform. One of the things I insisted upon was that there continue to be block funding, that is funding for regional hospitals that's not based on an efficient price, so that we keep those services operating in rural and regional New South Wales. And that $6.6 billion, which has already seen 399 beds open in hospitals right across the state. Now, regional New South Wales, of course, has a significant part to play in our state's economy, particularly when it comes to industries like mining and agriculture. Just yesterday, we made some announcements in relating to flying foxes and responding to farmers' requests for netting, for funding for netting, in order to keep their particularly for orchidists, their industry viable.
I've been contacted by an ALP candidate who says that they're in an ultra-marginal seat, mind you. They said that they're not getting much support from the ALP to run their campaign. Is it a strategy just to hold on to the seats you already have rather than targeting coalition-held, independent-held seats?
Well, look, I know that journalists always want to talk about strategy in campaigns. I'm not doing that in this campaign. The election will be on the 26th of March. And I'm fighting every day between now and the close of polls on the 26th of March to do two things. One, to talk about what my positive plan is for New South Wales. Two, to hold Mr. O'Farrell to account. He's trying to run the ultimate small target campaign. To not tell people what it is he'll do. We saw this example today. His shadow treasurer comes out this morning in great detail with a proposed state-based mining tax. Well, right across New South Wales, there are some 29,000 people directly employed in mining. The effect of a state-based mining tax would be send all those jobs to Western Australia or Queensland. Now, Mr. O'Farrell comes out about half an hour later and makes his shadow treasurer humiliatingly back down and rule it out. Yeah, these little glimpses that come out, they're what an insight is into a true coalition government. And I'm going to continue to hold Mr. O'Farrell for account.
But are you targeting those seats that the coalition holds?
Well,
or are you?
Today,
I mean, this bus is just going around at the moment in the Hunter, the Illawarra and Western Sydney, at this point, Labor heartland. Is that where you're concentrating?
Today I was in the seat of Lake Macquarie. We don't hold the seat of Lake Macquarie.
A hop, skip and a jump from Newcastle, though, where you
But you put to me the question, are we only targeting those sorts of seats? I put to you back, today I spent time in Lake Macquarie. Yesterday I was in the most marginal seat in the state, that of Miranda, and I was in the seat of Cronulla, which we also don't hold. This is a campaign for families right across New South Wales. And yes, this bus tour, this 4-day bus tour, is focusing on the areas you've outlined. But certainly, this campaign has got 3 weeks to run, and I'll be fighting every day of it.
The cornerstone, or one of the cornerstones of your campaign so far, Fairness for Families, is this rebate, this $250 rebate. Is that going to cover the costs of these electricity rises that we're projected to be seeing?
Well, for next year, yes, it will. Next year, electricity prices in New South Wales are projected to rise by $130 to $220. Mind you, they're going to rise all across the country. New South Wales is not unique in facing higher electricity prices. And some jurisdictions, on a percentage basis, it's rising even higher than in New South Wales. But for New South Wales families, what matters is how do they meet that cost? Well, we've done two things. One, we've removed the cost of the solar bonus scheme. So we've absorbed that cost. That's $100 that families won't face next year. And we've also, with our $250 rebate, we're going to fully offset the cost and indeed, for many people, eat into their current bill.
What role has your government, though, played in the rising prices of electricity?
Well, there are many reasons that electricity prices are rising, and that includes a range of things, such as the need to invest in the next generation of distribution and transmission infrastructure, the rising demand for coal from China and overseas. Electricity prices have also gone up due to increased usage of electricity, which you can see per household has risen dramatically over the last 30 years. All that is a good thing in the sense that people can now afford the sort of electronic goods that in the past were only luxuries, and that's a very good thing. But it does mean that as a nation we're facing rising electricity prices. Electricity prices are set by two regulators, one a national regulator and secondly a state-based regulator. They're set independently. What we can do as a government is look to give families a helping hand to face those rising costs. That's what that $250 rebate does.
You've arrived in the seat, in the Labor-held seat of Newcastle today. One of the major issues here has been the Newcastle rail line and the future of it. The indecision has been blamed for a loss of major investment. What's your position now on the future of the rail line?
Well, I'm very clear that rail needs to stay in the Newcastle CBD. I came in and looked at this, first started looking at it as a planning minister. And yes, I can see the challenges of having the heavy rail line where it currently is. Some people say it's a barrier to urban renewal. I say we're not ready to make that call yet. Rail, though, is incredibly important. It's important if you commute from Maitland into Newcastle. Clearly, for a whole large group of people in Newcastle, they treasure and cherish the fact they've got rail servicing their CBD.
So will it stay?
Well,
that's the question I think that everyone wants to know.
My view is rail has to be part of the future. Whether it stays or not, we're working with the Newcastle City Council. They're doing their Hunter Street Master Plan now. We'll, once they've finished that, take the next step with them. We've already spoken with Infrastructure Australia on many occasions. They're expecting a submission. We're working with the Council. Infrastructure Australia has made clear that submission has to be supported both by the Council and the state government, and that's where we're waiting on the next step, which is the Hunter Street Master Plan.
What can Kristina Keneally do that Barry O'Farrell can't?
Oh, well, keep Hunter Water in public ownership, ensuring that water prices are not driven up by privatisation. Not place a cap on the number of vulnerable children that the Department of Community Services will assist. That's a policy Mr O'Farrell announced this week. And certainly what we've seen through COAG health reform, where I went to Canberra, secured $6.6 billion for our hospital system. Amazingly, Mr O'Farrell can't decide if that's a good thing or not. Amazingly, he can't decide that the 16 beds that are already open at John Hunter Hospital as a result of that reform, he can't say whether or not he'll sign up to them. So, Mr O'Farrell can't commit to capping public transport fares. He can't even commit to the My Zone fares, which have saved hundreds of dollars for Newcastle commuters, whether they're going to Gosford or to the CBD. The savings are literally in the hundreds of dollars. So there are very stark differences between me and Mr O'Farrell. I'm going to be sure to hold him to account for the next 3 weeks.
Even so, all those points you made, it does seem like Barry O'Farrell will be Premier on March 27. Do you think that's the case? Do you think...
Well, there's no doubt if the election were held today, that would be the result. If you go by the polls, that would be the result. And potentially the result being with Mr O'Farrell having a very big blank cheque. I'm not going to let him get away with that, and I'm going to work every single day to ensure that when people go to the polling booth, they know what a Keneally government would mean for them and their family, and they know, or at least they know what they don't know, about what an O'Farrell government would mean.
Have you only got 19 days left as New South Wales Premier?
Well, there's an election on the 26th of March. That's up to the voters of New South Wales. Unlike Mr O'Farrell, I'm not going to walk around arrogantly. I'm certainly not going to stop giving information to people about what my plans and policies are. Remember this, some 900 days ago, Mr O'Farrell promised the people of New South Wales, the one guarantee, he said, is we'd know what his plans were for our electricity sector. Now, to date, he still hasn't delivered it. Well, if the people of New South Wales can't get one commitment out of Mr O'Farrell, how can they have any confidence in anything he's saying?
Premier, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.